Yo, hell yeah. Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo, welcome to Wyatt, and I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Grrr, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 yeah. Hey, to all my YouTubers out there, if you like what you hear, and if you like what you see, just click the subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. Just click it, click it. I love to click it, yeah. Hey, today's epi of Wyatt takes you into the big boy world, yeah, the big boy community, with our special guest, Mr. Joshua Pangborn. And he's uber talented. And he's the founder of SideKick Productions, a company focused on telling queer, fat, and sex-positive stories on both film and television. And Joshua has a very, very intriguing and inviting story to share with us. So all I can say is let's just get it on. Without further ado, Wyatt welcomes Joshua Pangborn. Talk at me. How the hell are you?
I am doing fabulous, and thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Listen, Mr. Pangborn, thank you for coming on Wyatt. I'm thrilled to have you. Now, before you say another word, let me tell the audience a little bit about you. You are the consummate multi-hyphenate, man. You are an award-winning horror actor. You're a writer. You're a creator and founder of SideKick Productions, which is a company focused on telling queer, fat, and sex-positive stories on film and television. Now, let me tell you something. I had to get that out. It makes me feel good when I do that. Man, I'm loving what you do. Your work is clever. It's inventive. It's sassy. So tell us, what is your muse? What motivates you and inspires you to do what you do?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess it's probably from not seeing the stories I wanted to see when I was younger. I grew up in a time where I remember Ellen coming out. I remember Jack coming out on Dawson's Creek. I remember those things, but that was about it. And then all of a sudden, Queer as Folk happened. But other than that, there was we had Will and Grace, and we had a smattering of stories here and there, but we didn't have the stories that I was looking for. And even when we had the stories about queer characters, we didn't have any fat queer characters. So I thought,
that's true.
If I'm going to do something, if I'm going to make stories and tell stories and do something with my company, I want to tell the stories of characters I wanted to see. And that was it. I also found that it was complicated getting me cast in things because my headshots I present as overtly, I guess, an overtly masculine character. So I would get called in for things like trucker and fireman.
I can
and
see
things
that.
Like that.
Yeah, I can
but
see
then
that.
When I performed, it was not so much that. That's not what came out. So it was sort of a disconnect from what they were looking for and what they saw with me. And
right.
I wasn't the only person having this situation or this experience. And so I thought, you know what? If no one's going to tell the stories about characters that I can relate to, someone else has to do it. And I guess it's me. So that's where SideKick Productions come from.
Okay. Names fascinate me, and particularly the names of companies. So SideKick Productions, is there like a backstory? How did you devise that name for your company?
So it probably came about when I was working on my dissertation for my doctorate. I had this sense, I always like to focus on tertiary characters and secondary characters, but not usually the main characters.
Okay.
And that's because usually if I got cast in something, that's what I would be. I would be the funny sidekick. I would be the in high school I was the dad or the grandpa or
Ah,
the comic relief character and everything. So um, that combined with the idea that I love Robin from Batman and Robin. That's
yeah,
my favorite comic book character.
right.
And then just the idea that if I was going to do something with fat characters, they're usually the sidekick. So we're going to put the sidekick in the spotlight and have SideKick Productions. So
That makes sense. I like that. I like that. We just a little bit earlier, you gave us a little bit about the mission of Sidekick Productions. Let's dig a little bit deeper. What are the goals, your objectives, and that overall mission?
sure. Sidekick Productions, as you said when you so nicely introduced me, is focused on telling queer, fat positive, and sex positive stories. So we are trying to tell stories about characters that are not usually seen with actors and crew who are not usually put in situations that we try to put them in. So our goal is to tell stories about fat queer characters, and also giving them a sexuality because so many
Right.
times when you have a fat character,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're a main character, they're devoid of sexuality or they're
Yeah.
sad about their sexuality because it's like, oh, woe is me, no one will love me. If you think about a show like Mike and Molly, which featured two
Mm-hmm.
fat characters, Mike and Molly,
Right.
you would see them in bed together, but they would always be very stationary. They would never
Yeah.
touch one another in bed. They would never have any sort of sexual interaction with one another, even like a hand holding almost. And
Whoa.
like they would kiss, but it was always a very sort of disconnected kiss, and the kiss was never in a sexual situation. It was always in a "I'm home from work, honey. Hi, how are you?" kiss.
You know what, Joshua, you're absolutely right because I hadn't even thought of that because that was, I would watch it ever so often. And, you know, that they ran that show for like 5, 6 years and
Yeah,
ended, I think, in 2015. And it's 2015 and that's still going on.
yeah. And if you
Yeah.
think about Modern Family, which is a show that just ended
Mm-hmm.
even more recently than that,
Right.
you essentially have a Chub and Chaser couple
Right.
between Mitch and Cam. But again, if they're in bed together, they're always fully dressed. They
Mm.
do not have any sort of physical interaction. And when they do kiss, the very first time they kissed ever was in the background of a scene. It was a quick peck on the lips of one another, and it was in the background with more of the other family doing things in the foreground, sort of to sort of distract from that and everything. And
Right.
when you have the father and the stepmother, you have the other married couple. They're physical. They're in underwear. They're doing sexual interactions with one another on mainstream
Oh.
television, but still. But you don't get that with the gay couple. And again, there's a lot of really positive things that came about having that kind of representation, but still, there was there was something that was definitely missing, and that was a sense that they had any sort of sexual life. And again, thinking about Queer as Folk, way back when, there was an episode where the character Emmett was hired to work on the news, and the character Brian talked about how he was presented in a way on the news because they wanted to have a safe eunuch type character where they could say they have their diversity with a queer character, but
Right.
he's not going to be in their face with his sexuality, so therefore
Got it.
it's safe. And so when we tried to do SideKick Productions, we wanted to have fat queer characters living normal lives, living sexual lives. Even if that sexuality is asexuality, we wanted to make sure that that sexuality was represented.
Mm.
So,
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Joshua, what has been the reception thus far to Sidekick Productions, particularly within the big boy community?
it's been really positive. I think that every day we get
That's good.
more and more eyes on the show. It's very popular in places around the world that don't have a lot of representation,
Oh,
and it's really
cool.
we get a lot of viewers in countries like Saudi Arabia, for example.
Whoa,
Um, and
really?
and it's really wonderful to hear from them. And we have some people who occasionally comment about how they really appreciate being able to see something like this because they can't actually even have that experience in their country because Saudi Arabia being the way that it is with the laws that it has and everything
Mm-hmm.
towards queer being queer and all. Um, so we have a lot of really wonderful positive feedback from people who are very excited to see things on screen that they haven't seen before. I've gotten so many comments about just people thanking me for helping them realize who they are or seeing themselves on screen. It's been great. I mean, I'm very lucky that people respond the way they do, and I didn't think that we would have that. I mean, I I'm so used to coming from the world of theater where you would do a show off Broadway, and then like 10 people would come, and you're
Yeah,
grateful because 10 people came.
I know.
And I'm like, okay, so if I do a web series, maybe I'll be lucky if maybe 100 people watch it. Yay.
Right.
And now we're over 3 million views for the channel and everything. So
Whoa.
it's been pretty great.
Well, congratulations. What are the top three foreign countries that consume your content?
That would be well, the U.S. is the number one country.
Right.
After the U.S. is, I think it is Saudi Arabia,
Hmm.
and Brazil, and Indonesia actually is another one of our major countries that watches us, and
Interesting.
and then I think the UK is after. Oh, India. I'm sorry, India is after that.
Hmm. Well, congratulations. As Mr. Spock from Star Trek would say, fascinating, simply fascinating.
When I
Wait,
saw the numbers, I was very fascinated by that as well. I was like, really, Indonesia? I would not have thought that.
exactly. Okay, now before we delve deeper into Sidekick Productions and talk a little bit about the big boy community, I want us to stroll through or down the corridors of time so that our audience, man, is very, very nosy. They want to know all about the guest. So let's stroll down the corridors of time to find out
Perfect.
about your backstory. So, where were you born and raised?
I was born about an hour south of Montreal, and I'm from the American side of the border,
Okay.
but I'm right by the Canadian border. So that's why when you hear me speak, sometimes it sounds a little Canadian because.
Ah,
And I moved to New York City, and when I didn't realize I even had a Canadian accent, quote unquote, but until people started saying, "You sound like you're from Canada," and I'm like, "I'm not, but I guess I'm from almost Canada." But
almost
so
Canada.
so I was born about an hour south of Montreal. So
Okay. Brothers, sisters, what's the family structure like?
sure, I have a younger sister. We are almost Irish twins. She's 16
Hmm.
months younger than I am, so we
Okay.
grew up very close together. I was a June baby; she was an October baby the next year. So we had we grew up very closely together. And then my mother, my father, my parents got divorced when I was
Oh, okay.
17. So
Right.
so that was uh, starting to be the time when it was sort of typical that people were getting divorced. But
Sure.
I was born in that cusp of if you're divorced, it's not quite yet the kind of thing that's normal. But then
Yeah.
right after that, sort of everybody gets divorced, and then it's like, oh, okay, divorces. So
Okay. Very true. Oh, okay. Here's the question I always like to ask my special guest, and here it is. What was Joshua like as a little boy, a little nipper? Give us like three characteristics or traits or qualities that you'd say best describe you.
oh, as a child,
Yeah.
I would say I would say I was uh, a bookworm.
Me too. Okay.
Absolutely, I
Uh-huh.
love to read. I would anytime I left the house, I would have a book in my hand. So
That's good.
it was the kind of thing I would just always have it, and I put it in my pocket, and yeah. So definitely a bookworm. Probably imaginative, I would say.
And you need that for what you do, right?
Yes, I was, and then I would say storyteller, because my mother and would off has told me about the times where I would just, even as a, I can't even remember this, but way back when, I would just start telling stories to people at the table and everything, and just I would come up to them and say, I would open to a story about animals at a zoo or something like that. So.
Okay, cool. I like that. All of the traits, characteristics that you need to be successful in being the content creator that you are. All right. Now, let's chat a little bit about the big boy community. What what's your definition, Joshua, of a big boy? What does it mean to you? What does the community mean?
I think I think that's a good question because it's really personal for everyone. I think, and I
Mm.
think that there's no right answer or no one answer for people when they have that when they hear that question. I think that it is a place I didn't know existed until I was about 15 and we got the internet.
Ah,
And then I realized, oh, there are people like me out there. How unique and everything. Because even when because I came out at a very young age. I was about 12, I think, when I came out. And
mhm.
I, uh, I wasn't very open in public about it, but I knew what I was at that time. So,
Right.
and so, but I also sort of, I felt very much like I was the kind of person that was not lovable. I think I had a lot of I grew up with a lot of that on my shoulder, that chip on my shoulder. I would often use Quasimodo as my character reference for Disney,
Okay.
and be like, I'm the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'm so alone, and no one will ever want me. Uh, and then I discovered the internet, and I discovered that people out there are like me and everything, and uh, I realized that people the community the big book community, the bear community, whatever you want to call it, it's full of people who generally know what it's like to be part of a group which is an outside of a it's an outsider group of an outsider group, so in some ways,
Perfect way of putting it. Yes.
and I think
Mhm.
that it is uh most of the time they can be very welcoming and warm and interested in learning about you and learning about what you do and who you are, because they have all been there. They've all been that shy chubby person in the corner of the bar, or that scared little scared or tall, not maybe not necessarily little, tall. I'm not tall, I'm very short, but
Okay.
but uh, they're just used to being outsiders, and they know what it's like to be overlooked because of what they look like, and not also not even necessarily care about that, because they themselves maybe aren't even attracted to the people that were overlooking them, but they just know
Mm.
that they've been pushed out of the outside group already. So I think that all in all, it's sort of a rambling answer, but I think that the big boy
No.
community is a community of people who are um, used to being outsiders of outsiders, and they want to try to make people feel welcome in their community. Whether or not they
Mm.
succeed, that's that's more of an individualistic thing, I think. I think the community tries for that. I think that the individuals sometimes uh, are more focused about uh, fulfilling their desires than necessarily welcoming people to the fold. But that's more of an individual than a group mentality, I think, in that sense.
That's very intriguing because our friend James Butler, who is the founder of the Bears Network
Mm-hmm.
and the Big Boy Project, when he was on Wyatt some time ago, he gave a similar answer. And he definitely said that he pretty much discovered the community via the internet. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's okay. What, Joshua, what are some misconceptions that people outside of the bear big boy community might have regarding the community? And at times, do big boys bears get a bad rap?
I think that we probably come off as entirely focused on sex. Uh, I
Oh,
think that's, I mean, because if you look at our events, if you look at things like
oh,
Bear Runs and Tidal Wave and Bigger Vegas and
mm-hmm.
things like that, um, uh, from an outside perspective, and I'm being even guilty of this myself early on. From an outside perspective, I think that they are very focused. That they appear to be sex based events, like it's a sexcation that you're going on. And while some people do that, and it's perfectly fine, and I support and encourage people to explore their sexuality in a healthy and safe environment. It doesn't always have to be that way, and that's where that sense of community and that sense of welcoming to people who are not used to being in a community find it. I know that
Hmm.
people. So I think that's one example of it, of something that I think gets a bad rap, or at least an incorrect perspective on that. I
Hmm.
think that that's probably one of the biggest ones. Uh, there's definitely a sense that the bear community in particular might be very particular about what makes a bear, and if you don't have a beard or you don't have hair on your body, then therefore you're not a bear.
Hmm.
And I think that was probably true maybe 20 years ago.
Okay.
Um, I've seen experiences of that from people having been ostracized from certain apps and things. Well, not apps, websites. This was pre-app.
Ah.
But I think that that's something that's gone out of fashion, because I think that the community has evolved in a way that says it's more much like our understanding of things like gender and sexuality in general. What you are, if you identify as a bear, then you're welcome in the community. That's sort of how it is more so.
Hmm. I'm gonna take it a step further because some people feel that um, you know if you are thick and you have a big gut, that doesn't
Mm.
mean that you're healthy, which is not necessarily true. So you weigh in on that.
I absolutely think that's a problem, and I think that's something that is unfortunately a true stereotype of the non-muscle bear crowd, basically.
Right.
Because I do think that there is a divide between the sense of there's muscle bear, and then there's fat and chub bears, and uh, sometimes the twain don't mix. I guess is
Mm.
sort of how it is. But I think I mean I think this is an issue beyond just the community, but in general,
Right.
society looks at someone who is not not necessarily a gym person or a gym model,
Right.
or even quote unquote thin, and just views them as someone who is unhealthy because of their body and everything. And that's I mean I've experienced that myself. I know that doctors have told me for a very long time that this issue that I have in my I have an issue in my upper back that
Oh.
doctors refuse to sort of give me any sort of consideration for, because they say it's just lose weight. And so I showed I had an example of I ended up losing 30 pounds at one point because of a change I had to make. Well, mostly because I was very busy filming, and so I'm very bad
Right.
with when I get to working on filming, because I forget to eat, and so my friends and
Mm-hmm.
my family have to remind me, hey, by the way, why don't you have this crunch bar or something and just eat something. So I ended up losing 30 pounds at one point, and
Oh wow.
um, I still had the back problem and everything, and so
Mm-hmm.
I was able to eventually convince a doctor to send me to physical therapy, and there
Oh.
is a problem. They don't quite know what it is, but that's not here or there. But the idea is that it wasn't related to weight at all. It's another issue, but because they look at me and they say, oh well, back equals weight problem. And I had another situation where a doctor was like, you need to stop eating McDonald's every day for lunch, and I'm like, I haven't had McDonald's for like 10 years. I don't know what you're talking about. So
Assumptions, don't you hate them?
It's
You know?
it's probably worse for the medical community, I say, than
Yeah.
anything else. I really do think that is the case, and I wish that weren't true, but I think that's who is most guilty of these assumptions and these unfair responses to our appearance.
Yeah. Which is really sad and crazy, all at the same time. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's swing back to Sidekick Productions. I mean, you're a hardworking man, my brother. I mean, you've created the award-winning queer soap opera called Skeleton Crew, now in its fifth season. Tell us about it and Dueling Pianos, your original musical episode of Skeleton Crew.
So Skeleton Crew is the thing that I was originally, it was going to be a play, because I
No.
originally, when SideKick Productions started, it was a theater company and it was only
Okay.
focused on theater. But as I mentioned, I got a little tired of just nobody really coming to the to the shows, because I mean,
I get it.
when you live in New York City, everyone is an actor and everyone has a friend who's an actor and everyone has a show going on, and every night
Right.
of the week you have to choose between 6 or 7 friends and be like, who am I going to disappoint tonight? So I get it when people couldn't come to my shows. I totally understand that. But it was also something I was like, we do so much work on this and nobody's watching it. So I wrote Skeleton Crew and I realized this is the first thing I wrote that I could see being a series as opposed to just a
Oh,
play. So
okay.
we decided to change it. My friends and I, who I was collaborating with, we decided to make our first season of Skeleton Crew, and we did. And it was the first episode got 2,000 views in 2 weeks, and I was floored by that because I expected like 100 views, and that was it if I was lucky. And then it's continued to grow since then. But it was a
Oh.
really wonderful experience where we learned by doing, because none of us had really any experience making film. I'd never edited film before. I'd never had done anything with filmmaking really.
Yowza.
So rather than be like a quote unquote normal person and just do like a 5 minute story and then practice with that, I decided to do 12, 30-minute episodes and jump right into the deep end with it. And so we did that with Skeleton Crew season one. And it was really, really well received. People really appreciated it. And of course, I said, well, we have to do season two. So we did.
Mm-hmm.
We retooled it a little bit. Some of the actors who are theater people, they realized that this wasn't sort of the area that they wanted to work in. They liked performing, but they liked performing in theater, not in film. And some people prefer one over the other, and that's perfectly fine. So we ended up retooling by focusing on my character and my character's husband, and centralized the bear couple in the middle of the stories, and brought in some minor characters from the first season to make them main characters, and voila, we ended up having what I think is the true first season of Skeleton Crew as it is now, is season two. And then season three and season four. And then for season five, I said, you know what? I love musical theater. Music has really been a part of the show from the beginning. So let's do a musical episode. And by this point, I had partnered with Nakia from season one of The Voice. You might know
Oh,
of him. He was
yeah. Mm-hmm.
the first openly queer relationship on singing competition, when Nakia and his husband,
Ah.
now husband, they weren't husbands at the time, but they were part of it. Nakia found his way into the show. He became a fan of it as well. And then he said, you know what? I'm not just a fan. I want to help you with it. So he did. And he
Wow.
does all of our sound design and our audio and music. And he also is a performer as well. He acts. So when I was writing season five, we talked about wanting to do a musical episode, and we did. So we wrote 15 original songs, and we have an hour and a half long episode of Skeleton Crew, which is a full length movie essentially, which is filled with 15 original songs that we ended up recording. It was a lot more work than I thought it would be. I thought, you know what, we're gonna make a
Whoa.
musical. It's gonna be like that. It's gonna be very easy because that's how I think. And then it turned into this much, much, much larger endeavor. But it was really, really worth
Wow. I want to be just like you when I grow up.
it. It's a hard head to have because I wear a lot of hats on it, but
Right.
it's good to be me, I think, at times. So
I agree. I agree. Now, what's this thing about Demon Doctor? It seems like you've got horror, like this strain of horror running through your work. I love it. But tell us about Demon Doctor.
absolutely, Demon Doctor was so. After season 4 of Skeleton Crew,
Uh-huh.
I loved doing Skeleton Crew, but I was itching to try something new. So we we decided to do a series I wrote called Demon Doctor,
Uh,
which is takes my love of genre fiction, like '90s Buffy Vampire Slayer, '90s The X Files, things like that, and so it's sort of an homage to that, but in a much queerer and much fatter and much sexier sort of fashion. And so it's a story of a detective named Mark and a demonologist named Derek, and I play the
uh-oh.
demonologist, and
Mm,
their adventures as they fight what goes bump in the night, basically. So.
I love it.
And so we did season 1 right after season 4 of Skeleton Crew, and that was really popular as well. We were in the web series World Cup. We were 6th in the world for horror series in terms of most awarded horror series.
Wow, that's
Uh,
great.
it was really fun. It was really exciting to have that sort of recognition from my peers around the world and all. And then we decided to do season 2. Unfortunately, we were casting and ready to film season 2 in March of 2020. And March of 2020 was, of course, the
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote end of the world, as some people said.
Yeah.
So that got delayed, and then we started filming in 2021, and now I'm actually finished in 2022, and now in 2023 we are having the year of Demon Doctor, where every month we're releasing a new episode because we have 12 episodes for season 2, and yeah, so people can watch Demon Doctor every month with us and have a good time.
Well, you know what? I'm scared of you. That means scared.
You should be. We are a very scurry bunch, so
I'm scared of you. Okay, let's keep on the horror train because you've got award-winning horror shorts. One is Wasted on the Young,
mhm.
and then the other one is Scratched. I'm intrigued. Tell us a little bit about those two.
Absolutely. During the pandemic, we were a little bored, as many people were.
Okay.
So we decided to, in our bubble, make some short films. So we did. And we made Wasted on the Young, which is an 8-minute film about aging in the queer community and
Oh wow.
what you will do to not age, basically.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
and so that was really well received. Lots of awards for that one, actually. And then we
Great.
did another one which was called Scratched, which is the story of two people, Liam and his husband, and how they are. Liam is definitely based off of me, because I Liam doesn't leave the apartment during quarantine because he's scared to get sick, and I did not leave the apartment from March to July of quarantine because I was also scared and very very paranoid about things.
Yeah.
So that sort of inspired this story, and but what happens is he realizes that his apartment is haunted, and
Ooh.
has to deal with that basically. So
Ooh. Oh wow. Topical stuff. Okay, now again, you're a busy man because you're currently in post production on A Taste of Youth, which is going to be the world's first queer, fat positive horror feature film. Tell us, ambitious, first of all, and exciting. So tell us about that.
absolutely, I felt after 5 seasons of Skeleton Crew and doing Demon Doctor for 2 seasons, it was time to do a feature film because I mean, that sort of felt like the next logical thing to try out. We had done
Mm-hmm.
short films, we had done series, we had done theater, so let's do a feature. And so I took Wasted on the Young, which was our short film that we did, and I realized that I could expand this into a feature film, and we
Oh,
did. And so last June, we took 11 days and we filmed a feature film in 11 days, and then
Wow.
now we're in post production on it, and hoping that people will like it as much as they like the short film and as everything else we do. So
And you did it in only 11 days.
yes, 11 days, and then and then later that fall we did 3 days of reshoots once we saw what we wanted, what we needed to change and everything, and fix and everything. So
Joshua, how long were your days?
usually 12 to 14 hours.
I thought so. Wow. Okay. Oh, I know what I want to ask you. Let's say, Joshua, you were in an alternate universe and you could not be an entertainment professional or a content creator. What would you do? What profession would you have and why?
That's very hard.
Yeah.
Which is a good question to ask then, because it's it's very good to ask these challenging questions. I guess I would probably pursue my other lifestyle, which is academia, and I'd probably be a college professor.
I can see
Because
that.
that's I sort of have that sort of, I have a duality to me where half of my life is very academic and half of my life is very creative and driven by art and everything, and I'm lucky that the two fields sort of merge, but at the same time they are very distinct at times as well. And so if I couldn't do the art and the filmmaking and the television making and acting and all that, I would probably have devoted more time and more of my energy in life to being an academic.
Okay. That's very logical. As Mr. Spock would say, logical, logical. Okay.
That's
So
that part of my brain, the Spock side. I've got like the Spock and the bones in my head, I guess. So
that's an interesting combination. I was gonna when you began to say it, I said to myself, he'll say Spock and Kirk, but Spock and Bones. Interesting.
I
I
think
like
so.
that.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. So tell us for the remainder of 2023, what do you and SideKick Productions have on tap?
Well, we are, as I said, releasing season 2 of Demon Doctor every month. So every month you can
Uh-huh.
watch a new episode, and that's this season is really really awesome. We have Nakia doing music and doing sound. We have Paul who's doing our make. He's our makeup artist. He's a self-taught makeup artist because I said I need somebody to do makeup, and he said I'll do it. I'll teach myself, and so that's sort of how we work.
Great.
We teach ourselves to do things, and then makes magic from there. So every month you can watch a new episode of Demon Doctor. We are
Uh-huh.
currently filming right this very second a brand new series that I came up with called The Brooklyn Butcher, and that
Ooh.
is so. Imagine, if you will, 9 episodes of The Twilight Zone taking place at the exact same time in an apartment building. That's the exact same apartment building for each of them, just a different apartment. And you will have The Brooklyn Butcher, which is
Oh.
the story of a city under siege and in fear as a serial killer is at large, and all the people in the apartment building are dealing with their own individual stories while they are fearing the Brooklyn Butcher. And
Mm.
so each episode is an individual story that is self-contained, but also adds up to a larger overall narrative. So
My audience, all I can say is this.
exactly. If we had sound design, I would just put in the psycho noise right there, so we could have that. So.
Well,
Uh,
no, finish, please. I'm up here laughing.
No,
No, you
no,
go
of
ahead.
course. So we're filming that right now. I should be done filming that by July, and probably that
Okay.
will come out in January, I think. And then we're finishing post production on A Taste of Youth. So hopefully that will
Oh,
be
okay.
ready by the end of the year to send to festivals and have some good times with that. And then we're probably going to film one more thing before the end of the year, but I'm not 100% certain on what we're going to settle on, so I'm not sure yet. But we definitely have one more project in us to film by the end of the year. So.
Well, you've got a hell of a lot in the pipeline. That's awesome. Well, how can we connect with you, follow you, please give us all of your social media.
Absolutely. If you wanted to find me on Instagram or on TikTok, you can find me at SideKick Productions. If you want to go on Twitter, which some people still use it and not in a bad way,
Okay.
but Twitter is at SideKick Prod. And on Facebook, you can find us under all of our series. You can find SideKick Productions, you can find Skeleton Crew, you can find Demon Doctor, you can find A Taste of Youth on there. You can also find us on YouTube to watch all of our stuff if you want to at youtube.com/SideKick Productions. And if you really like what we do and you want to support us, you can go to Patreon at patreon.com/SideKick Productions, where you will be able to get a lot of behind the scenes activities. You'll be able to join our private Discord and chat with cast and crew. You'll be able to see a lot of what we do and also watch everything we make before anyone else does. So
you heard it, y'all. Listen, Mr. Joshua Pangborn, thank you for stopping by. Wyatt, it was a delight. You must come back at some point.
I will come back to Wyatt at any time you want. So
I appreciate that. Well, again, sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I really, really, and before I go, I have to also say, I really love the shirt you're wearing, by the way. It's very, something I would definitely want for myself. So excellent taste in clothing.
You know what? I'll leave you with this. As Michael Jackson would say, Tito, give me a tissue. Oh. Thank you for that.
Of course.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, so y'all, there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page at WyattEvans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ plus news, features, commentary, and entertainment. WyattEvans.com is visited by more than 100 countries on the regular. All I can say to that is, hey, baby. And at WyattEvans.com, you'll find my smoking hot, HAWT hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. And as you just saw on the top, the newest installment is called Shattered. I said Shattered. And y'all, Shattered is full of action, danger, intrigue, sexually charged situations, passion, and all of the wonderful elements that you're used to in the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. So get your new copy of Shattered. Now you can follow me, your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, all across social media, and poof is right there for you to peruse, like TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any comments or whatever, you can hit me up at wyattonair@gmail.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. I said woof.